You scared Diane away.
And for those of you in the audience, we will be starting the Danville Town Council meeting shortly.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular town council meeting for this Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. We welcome all of you here today, and we'd like to go ahead and begin with calling this meeting to order and asking Marie Senseri to do the roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Fong.
Here.
Councilmember Stepper.
Here.
Councilmember Storer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Arnerich.
Here.
And Mayor Morgan.
I'm here.
All council members are in attendance.
Thank you, Marie. Also, are there any announcements?
Yes, this meeting is being held by teleconference only on Zoom, and a recording will be made available on the town website following the meeting, as well as any written public comments that have been received by the town. And I will note that there were no written comments received for any item on the agenda this evening, including for the good of the town. And to provide live comments during the meeting, use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And when the mayor opens up the item to public comment, you can raise your hand at that time. Your name will be announced and only your audio will be enabled. You're asked to state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And again, wait until the mayor has opened that item to public comment before raising your hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we'd like to start our meetings with a little pomp and circumstance. And this evening we have with us our Maintenance Service Director, Dave Castile, and he will be leading us in the pledge this evening. Dave, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate that. And we will see you later today in the meeting. So thank you for doing that for us. The next item on the agenda are changes to the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the order of the agenda?
Mayor Morgan, there are no changes per se. There were distributed to council just some revisions to consent item number 5.1. And with that, nothing further.
Great. And I'm assuming that everybody has received item 5.1, the changes. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the good of the town. Once again, the good of the town is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda this evening. If you'd wish to address us on an item not on the agenda, please use the raise your hand feature and Marie Senseri will call on you. We will go ahead and give you 3 minutes to make your statements. And just note that since it is not on the agenda, it is not something that we can take action on and or address this evening on our meeting. It can, though, be put on for future meetings and or discussions, but not on tonight's meeting. Is there anybody that would like to address the council for the good of the town? I see you're on mute, which I've done, but that's okay.
Thank you. We have a number of hands raised this evening, and the first individual that we are going to hear from is Sarah Stroin.
Okay. Welcome, Sarah. You have 3 minutes. We're happy that you're here with us this evening. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much, Mayor Morgan. My name is Sarah Stroin, as I think I said already. And yeah, thank you for letting me speak tonight. Good evening to the town council members. I'm speaking up tonight in regards to the recent verdict that thankfully held Deputy Andrew Hall partially accountable for killing Latimer Arboleda in our town by convicting him of felony assault with a firearm. And I'm just very happy that the jury was unanimous on this count, and I hope that DA Becton will retry him on the manslaughter charge. And I hope that the council will join me in calling on the district attorney to retry him. So I am one of the representatives of the organization Conscious Contra Costa, and so we are collectively urging the town council to just stand with us, to call on DA Becton to also bring charges against Deputy Hall for killing Tyrell Wilson in our town. So I also want to thank the council for a few things. First of all, I applaud you for the recent allocation of ARPA funds to mental health and homeless services at the county level, and especially that the homeless services allocation will be granted in honor of Tyrell Wilson. Also, I really appreciate the recent meeting that Joe Calabrigo, town manager, had with a few members of Conscious Contra Costa. Yeah, it was just felt like a really productive meeting, and I wanted to publicly thank you for doing that. Also, thank you to Newell for meeting with me recently to discuss a few things, specifically the memorial proposal that we would like to get moving on to have a memorial for Latimer Arboleda and Tyrell Wilson in our town. So I'm looking forward to just continuing the dialogue and hearing back on what we can do to get that project moving forward. So thanks for hearing me out tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. Marie?
Yes. The next individual to speak is Veronica Benjamin.
Good evening, Veronica.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Honorable Town Council. Like Sarah, who just spoke before, I'm also a member and co-founder of Conscious Contra Costa. We've been in dialogue with the town on several points. And so tonight I'm primarily calling in to also just commend the verdict, which got partial justice for Latimer Arboleda and his family. I would just like to underscore at this point that, 12 of our peers in this county, the 12 jurors, looked at what all of us have been able to see for years, which was that was an unnecessary and excessive action on the part of Andrew Hall when he shot Latimer Arboleda. He shot at him 10 times, hitting him 9 times. And so this assault with a firearm was for those 8 bullets that were non-fatal shots. The town had kept him employed for over 2 years following this action, which again, 12 jurors felt was excessive, unnecessary, and frankly dangerous. We've met with the town manager, Joe Calabrigo, and again, we appreciate him giving us ample time, and we just really hope that and encourage the town to have a more transparent policy regarding what its own standards are, regardless of what the policing standards are. What are the standards for us to keep an officer on employee, armed and in our town moving forward? The other thing I would like to request of the town is that they put pressure on the sheriff to formally fire Andrew Hall. At this point, he's a convicted felon. I'm not a policy expert. I know we just had SB2 passed recently. Maybe someone within the town's administration has a better grasp of policy and could maybe make a public statement to this effect. But I don't think it's appropriate for him to be paid by our tax dollars at this point. And I haven't heard anything from the sheriff's side whether he intends to keep him employed or not. Moving on, I would similarly like to really applaud the town's decision to use those American Rescue Plan Act funds, the ARPA funding, totaling $350,000 to both the mental health services and homelessness services. I personally told the family of Tyrell Wilson that $100,000 of those funds, $100,000 of those funds were being given on their behalf and on behalf of their son, Tyrell Wilson. And they just really emphasized that they want those funds to go to effective charities, particularly charities working in Black and Brown communities. So with regard to that, I'd like to lift up the Trinity Center in Walnut Creek, as well as Collaborizing in Richmond, as two local nonprofits that are doing work in very vulnerable communities. Actually, particularly the Trinity Center, Tyrell had used their services before and was a member. So please consider giving these funds to these two great organizations. And for the mental health funding, also the Miles Hall Community Crisis Hub would be my priority. I know you listed 3 organizations that you're thinking of, and for me personally, that would be a priority to uplift Miles's name. So thank you again for your time, and yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you, Veronica. Marie?
Okay. The next speaker is identified just by the name of Darren.
Hi, Darren. Do you have a last name, Darren? How are you this evening?
Hi, it's Darren Matt.
Hi.
Hi guys. I'm with Danville Harvest and Cocina Hermanas. Thank you, Mayor Morgan and council members. As we approach the January 4th deadline, we can't emphasize enough how effective these land use permits have been. They have ensured the survival of many businesses while contributing to the overall vibrancy of our community. Things are far from returning to normal. Local businesses face new challenges every week, the latest being a county-specific vaccine mandate for indoor dining. The simple reality is that it's too early to remove these safety measures that we have depended on for survival. This week, we'll be submitting a letter signed by the majority of businesses who have relied on these land use permits, asking the town for a comprehensive plan moving forward. Revoking these land use permits January 4th, and then waiting 18 to 24 months until a more permanent solution is in place will unfortunately have a lasting negative impact on Danville businesses and our community. Thank you.
Darren, just really quick. First of all, it's January 3rd, and I have a question for you. Were you able to watch our meeting when we discussed this and when we extended it to January 3rd?
I was, absolutely. And I was under the impression that there was going to be some effort to come up with a little bit of a glide path between the master plan and the January 3rd date.
Okay.
And unfortunately, just doesn't seem that it's happened on that front. And I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about.
Okay. So I just was curious, and we'll have staff reach out to you as well. So thank you for those comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next speaker is Stephanie Taddeo.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Town Council. I'm speaking to you today regarding the guilty verdict in the People versus Andrew Hall. As you know, Deputy Hall was convicted of felony assault with a firearm in the shooting and killing of Vladimir Arboleda on November 3rd, 2018 here in Danville. It's my understanding that Deputy Hall has been on paid administrative leave since he was removed from duty after killing a second man here in Danville, Tyrell Wilson, on March 11th, 2021. Now that Hall is a convicted felon, I urge the Town Council to take a strong and united position that Hall be fired from the county and his pay terminated. If the council does not have the authority to fire Hall, then I strongly urge you to take a hard, unbending position and pressure Sheriff David Livingston to fire Hall immediately. Now that Hall has been found guilty, it's imperative that the council send a loud and clear message to Danville and the rest of the county that this verdict is respected and taken seriously. There is no justifiable reason for the county to retain any employee who has been convicted of a felony in a trial by jury. On a different subject, before I sign off today, I wanted to commend the Town Council for their support of the Measure X Advisory Board recommendations for the funds collected for county services. I am relieved and pleased that the Town Council is publicly supporting the hard work of the Advisory Board. Thank you for your service and for the opportunity to speak today.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your comments. And I did want to also mention to you as well that Andrew Hall is no longer an officer with Danville. He is with the sheriff now. So just to let you know, we don't have that authority to hire or fire him. What next, Marie?
Yes. The next speaker is Dave Homer.
Dave, welcome. Dave, are you there?
Dave is muted.
Yep, there I am.
There
Can
you
you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. I just wanted to echo what Darren mentioned a few minutes ago. And I know that the meeting tonight there's nothing that can be done to change anything. I just want to, I've had some conversations with a few of you and you understand and are trying to get information about sort of the state of the town in terms of businesses and for me in particular restaurants. But I just want to make sure that I pass on my experience with our customers, which is many residents of the town, and they are actually surprised every day when they hear stories that all the tents and the parklets are going away January 3rd. And we sort of explained sort of the premise of extending them from earlier this summer up until the end of this year. And at the time that we sort of came to the conclusion that let's extend it to January 3rd, we were under the assumption that the business climate and customer behavior would be a lot more recovered than it currently is. And we were not anticipating the current variant that's out there, as well as vaccine mandates and requiring us to check vaccination status of customers. All these things are creating additional uncertainty. And even though we are permitted to be open at 100% capacity indoors, we are seeing that there's still a great number of people that are not dining indoors, that are still staying away and would prefer to be outdoors given that option. And if things continue as they are and the temporary measures expire January 3rd, I believe that we're going to lose a lot of customers eating out in restaurants simply because they're not prepared to cram indoors simply because we're allowed to let them do that. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your comments. Marie?
Yes, the next speaker is Steve Beck. And after Steve, I don't have any other hands up at this point. So if there are speakers, they might want to get into the queue.
Okay, great. Steve, are you there? All right, Steve, I don't hear you. Are you on mute? Marie, do you see him?
I do see Steve. I do see that his audio is connected, but Steve, we can't hear you. Perhaps.
So is there anybody else that raised their hand in the meantime? We could come back to Steve, or is Steve our last speaker for the evening under public comment?
Steve is our last speaker under For the Good of the Town. I do see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
He is trying to connect and muting and unmuting himself, but we still can't hear him. So.
Steve, I mean, what we can do is if you're able to get through to let Marie know, you know, we do have For the Good of the Town is an item that I'll be closing here shortly. And if we are not able to hear your comments, you're more than welcome to send us an email and let us take a look at your email. We would, you know, be really interested to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to go ahead, if you give you one last try to get in and see if you can get in, Steve, and we'll hold on 2 seconds. And Marie, any luck?
No.
Okay,
he's trying, but it's not coming through.
Well, Steve, we so appreciate you trying. And like I said, if you wouldn't mind, you could send us an email. We'd be more than happy to respond or to look at your email and to receive your comments. So Thank you so much for also trying to get into the meeting this evening. We appreciate all and everybody's comments this evening, and thank you for taking the time to address the council under the good of the town. It's very important for all of us to hear from you. So thank you so much for spending the time with us this evening to give us your comments. The next item is item number 5, which is our consent calendar. A consent calendar are items that are routinely acted upon in one motion. Although members of the council or members of the public can pull an item from the consent items. Is there anybody in the council that wishes to pull an item out of 5.1 through 5.8? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and see if there's anybody from the public that wishes to pull an item off of consent.
There are no members in attendance who would like to speak on the consent calendar.
Okay, then I'll bring it back to the council.
And move that we adopt consent calendar item 5.1 through 5.8, noting the revision to 5.1.
Second,
All right, I have a first and a second, and if we could do a roll call, please.
Yes. Councilor Fong,
Yes.
Councilmember Stepper,
yes.
Councilmember Storer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Arnerich,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
And the consent calendar was approved unanimously with the revision to item 5.1. I do want to note that there is a hand raised. Veronica Benjamin raised her hand as I was taking the roll. Would you like to see if Veronica was wanting to speak on one of the items on the consent calendar?
If this is in regards to the consent calendar, absolutely, because that's what we're on. Is there an item on the consent calendar that she would like to pull, Veronica?
Yes, Madam Mayor, is on 5.6, because I misunderstood you. I thought the call for public comment was regarding to remove one. I don't want to remove anything, but I did want to speak to the consent calendar.
Okay,
So-
then we'll go ahead and bring back item 5.6. And if you'd like to go ahead, you've got 3 minutes, Veronica. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, no, thank you. And especially I'd like to really thank our town manager, Joe Calabrigo, for penning this letter in support specifically of the Measure X Community Advisory Board. I believe Kathy Shiverton is going to be on this meeting later of the Discovery Center. If not, I just know that she sits on that board and she's just an amazing community member, and her, as well as Mariana Moore and BK Williams and Gigi Crowder and so many other people have spent hours and hours and hours hearing out those most in need across our county. And the fact that all of these people were entrusted by the Board of Supervisors to sit through this listening, this very careful listening, and also the very difficult process of deciding, who is in the most need. Where do these very precious Measure X funds most need to be allocated to? So I just think it's imperative that the Board of Supervisors listens very, very carefully to what the Community Advisory Board, what's within the final recommendations that have been submitted to them. So I was just very, very proud and very happy that the town of Danville has just now approved this letter in support of the Measure X Community Advisory Board. So thank you all.
Thank you, Veronica. We appreciate that. And I wanted to let you know that Kathy was going to be on this evening. She had a conflict, so she'll be on one of our future meetings. So stay tuned. All right, so let's go ahead and bring it back to the council again. And we've got a motion on the floor and a second.
And the consent
Already
calendar was approved unanimously.
Okay, I just wanted to have that said once again, and we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 6.1, which we look forward to on a monthly basis, is our town manager's report with Joe Calabrigo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the town council. Yes, just to finish up on the last item, Kathy Shiverton will be presenting at your meeting in 2 weeks on November the 16th. So she'll be here 2 weeks from now. So a few things to cover tonight. November has arrived. We're well into the fall. The town is continuing to operate under a state of emergency due to the COVID pandemic, following directives from the California Department of Public Health, the CDC, and our own county, especially as it's related to our facilities, community events, facility rentals, and programming. Our cases and hospitalizations in Contra Costa County are currently stable. And in Danville, we've had 52 new cases in the last 14 days. The current health order that was issued in September mandated that operators of dining establishments, entertainment venues, fitness facilities, and such, that they limit their indoor service to those patrons who are either vaccinated or who can show a negative test result. And I think as we've been tracking the news here recently, we've seen that there's been some resistance to this in some well-known Bay Area establishments, but we don't appear to be having issues here in Danville thus far. The county health officer has indicated that the current indoor mask order can be lifted when our county reaches what the CDC has described as a moderate level of COVID transmission, and remains there for at least 3 weeks, and we're not there yet. Also, when there are fewer than 75 COVID hospitalizations in the county, and right now there are 59, so we would meet that criteria. And then finally, when one of 2 remaining conditions are met, those 2 conditions being either 80% of the total population being fully vaccinated, and right now we're at 73%, or 8 weeks after the CDC authorizes the COVID vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. And that hasn't quite happened yet. I'm understanding that that is going to be considered this week. But given where things stand with these criteria, it appears as though we are weeks, if not months, from the required criteria being satisfied. The county has lifted masking requirements on as of November 1st for certain types of indoor settings where everyone is fully vaccinated. These are in controlled spaces that are not open to the general public. So, for example, with our town facilities, even if our employees were fully vaccinated, the fact that we are open to the public would preclude us dropping that mask mandate. So we continue to urge all of our community members and employees to get their vaccines. Switching subjects on to economic development, the town, as we have been doing, continues to assist and support our businesses in a number of ways. You just acted via the consent calendar on the award of a contract to the SWA group. They will be working with us on the new downtown master plan. Very excited to be working with that firm. They have extensive experience doing just what the scope of our project entails. And I'm personally excited by it because it will give us a fresh set of eyes taking a look at some of the issues that we want to look at through the course of this plan. With respect to the business promotion funds that were approved by the council just this past September, we're working with applicants to submit and update their applications to meet the criteria that have been set forth. With the Forward Focus Grant Program, I've previously mentioned that there were 141 grants awarded that totaled about $472,000. We're closing out that grant program at this point, and still waiting on some of the reimbursements that need to be made there. There's a holiday marketing campaign, and our Business and Economic Development Director, Jill Bergman, is going to be providing you with an update on the scope of this campaign under separate cover. The media for the campaign is being finalized for rollout later this month. What I would tell the council is, and I've left some examples for you in the council office. The gift guide that Jill has shown me is just incredible. 24 pages. The town, as you know, has subsidized the cost of the guide. The ads are sold out in the gift guide in the printed version. But a key thing to remember is that businesses that may not have been aware or didn't sign up in time can continue to buy space in the online version. The gift guide and some of these other marketing materials look just spectacular. So I think that it's going to be a big boost through the holidays. For council member storers' benefit, we will be updating our business activity memo and providing that to all of the council members by the end of this week. Our staff is currently sending out the intent to host letters for organizations that are going to be requesting street closures to host community events in 2022. And we have planning meetings that are taking place this week toward the lighting of the old oak tree, which will occur the Friday after Thanksgiving, and certainly a community event that many people look forward to. And then I would just mention that our economic development staff, in coordination with finance and transportation, in light of the pandemic, the town has determined that we will be deferring sending unpaid business licenses to collection this year. We're going to be also extending the time period for the free downtown parking permits through 2022. So just a couple of other things that we're doing there to help to support our businesses. On a financial front, we are moving forward with ARPA implementation. The funds that have been earmarked have been sent to the various nonprofit partners. Finance is in the process of completing closing the 2021 fiscal year and preparing the audited comprehensive financial report. So in previous years, we referred to that as the CAFR, but as one of their executive decisions this year, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has decided that rather than a comprehensive annual financial report, it will heretofore be referred to as an annual comprehensive financial report. So same four letters, different order, just to see if we're all on our toes. So the Finance Committee has reviewed the year-end summary at their most recent meeting in October, and the council will be seeing a draft of the report at your study session next week, with the final version due to come to you on November the 16th for final action. And then some good news on the sales tax front. Had a meeting today with our sales tax consultants, looked at the information that they've provided us. For the most recent 4 quarters running from July of 2020 through August of 2021, the town's sales tax revenues are up by 16.7% from 1 year ago. So 1 year ago being July of 19 through August of 2020. So some very good news there on the sales tax front, much of it buoyed by the growth in online sales. Moving to legislation, this has been at the forefront of your efforts throughout this year, and our Deputy Town Manager, Diane Friedman, has really done a great job of providing you with monthly updates. She gave you a comprehensive year-end update at your last meeting. Bottom line, 1,104 bills passed, many of them signed into law. That's a lot of new laws. The town is now working with our Tri-Valley partners, and will be over the next couple of months, to update the Tri-Valley legislative platform for 2022. The town's advocacy platform is going to continue to focus on the legislative goals and principles that have been set forth in the town's legislative framework. And those who are interested in getting more information about that can look on our website under legislative advocacy. Mental health initiatives touched upon, heard some speakers touch upon this earlier at the meeting. Work is continuing on the community crisis initiative to develop a system where anyone in Contra Costa County can access timely and appropriate behavioral health crisis services anywhere at any time through this program. So we're now beginning to hear it referred to as A3 Contra Costa in some spots. The pilot program is currently operating, with efforts currently underway to see how we'll be able to fund the entire program. The Board of Supervisors will be considering the allocation of Measure X funds at their November the 16th meeting, which is why we wanted to get that letter over to them before that. Our fire district is continuing to work on their pilot program. I continue to be in communication with Chief Meyer. I will be sitting in to observe one of their training sessions later this week. I think I did see Chief Sellover as one of the attendees at our meeting this evening, sitting in with us. So shout out to the chief, and we are very much interested in that program. All of these efforts really aimed at looking at ways to reduce avoidable law enforcement responses to mental health calls, while improving services for people or families that are in need or who are experiencing a mental health crisis. Moving on to housing, regional housing needs, RENA, the 23 through 30 housing element. Danville was one of 28 Bay Area cities that appealed our RENA numbers. Our appeal was denied, as were the others. So ABAG was consistent in their application of their numbers. The town, as we're all aware, has been assigned an extremely large number of housing units to plan for over the next 8 years. In fact, 4 times the number that we were assigned in the last housing element, with the majority of these units assigned targeted for affordable to very low income individuals and households. The town is continuing with outreach and engagement efforts related to the upcoming housing element update, and we're doing the best that we can to continue to get that word out and make sure that people are aware of what is happening and what's in the process. A couple of our speakers this evening spoke to the trial verdict from last week. We saw the media coverage of the outcome of that trial, where Sheriff's Deputy former Danville Officer Hall was convicted on the assault with a weapon charge stemming from the officer-involved shooting of Latimer Arboleda. In April, earlier this year, in April of 21, the DA decided to file charges in that case. Some 2.5 years after the November 2018 shooting. And last week, the jury rendered a verdict, and they did find Deputy Hall guilty on the assault charge, with a mistrial declared on the manslaughter charge. The sentencing hearing has been scheduled for January. As we indicated last week when we were asked, police officers are tasked with upholding laws, protecting people, and loss of life resulting from a police response is something that is certainly unfortunate and tragic. Regardless of the circumstances, it's, I think, the last outcome that anyone wants to see. And our thoughts certainly are with Mr. Arboleda's family for the loss that they've suffered. Ultimately, I think this case was presented to, and it was tried before a jury of our peers. These proceedings were open and transparent. So for those who weren't able to attend the trial, they were able to listen to the audio of the trial throughout the 3 weeks that it went on. So the public had the opportunity to hear all of the information and the testimony that was presented to and considered by the jury. And that jury has now rendered a verdict, which, and we have to and do respect the process and respect the outcome. It was also reported last week that the county has reached a financial settlement in the civil case that was brought on this. The town, through our police contract with the sheriff, is held harmless from liability under that contract, and as such, we were not a party to that settlement. I will say that the town does remain committed to the contract service delivery model for law enforcement services. The ongoing working relationship with the sheriff's office, I believe, continues to benefit the town in terms of the quality of the service that we receive and the support that goes along with it, and the continuing level of community safety. I want to touch on animal services, which we include as a part of our police budget, but is actually its own separate contract, and not a topic, fortunately, that the council hears me speak on with any great frequency. Right now, 18 of our county's 19 cities contract with Contra Costa County Animal Services for mandated programs and enforcement of all animal-related laws. So mandated services include things like rabies control, dangerous or potentially dangerous animals, animal noise enforcement cases, major case investigations, and animal housing and sheltering. Animal services also includes a number of other non-mandated services that include things like low-cost spay and neuter services for our pets, education and enrichment programs, deceased animal pickup, and local agency assists. For the last 15 years, the animal services has increased our city fees based on population growth with a CPI adjustment. And not surprisingly, their costs have outpaced the CPI, which means that the county's general fund is now paying a disproportionately large share of that cost. So just to give you an idea, our current cost for among the cities in Contra Costa is $6.79 per capita. Other Bay Area counties' fees range anywhere from somewhere north of $12 to north of $25 per capita. Antioch, that operates their own center, their own shelter, is paying $16.63 per capita. So all of this, not surprisingly, leading the Contra Costa Animal Services to indicate to all of the cities that we can expect to see an increase in our costs next year. And they are recommending that the per capita fees will increase to $9.11 per capita. It's a 34% increase, which will be significant as part of our police budget. And so I want to make you all aware of that as we head into to mid-year and look forward to planning for next year. Development services, very busy right now. Among other things, they're planning for, they're working on implementation measures related to SB 9, which becomes law on January 1st. As you're all aware, SB 9 will allow for lot splits and construction of multiple units on what were previously single-family lots. So we, again, want our community to be aware of those changes that are coming. I know that right now, almost 2 years after the fact, we're now beginning to see some of the impacts that are resulting from the new ADU laws that went into effect almost 2 years ago. You know, as a prime example, where with no ability really to be able to do anything other than permit these, they are popping up in places. And despite our best efforts with our garden cottage program, some of the examples that we're seeing are more cost-effective modular units, which aren't doing a whole lot aesthetically, but are certainly providing for additional housing units. Switching subjects, talk about CIP, Capital Improvement Program. A lot of street and pavement focus right now. Our pavement management program, the rubberized Cape Seal project, we're going to be opening the bids next week and hope to start construction on that project later this month. We have the Camino Ramon overlay project, which is planned to happen in the spring of 22. San Ramon Valley Boulevard design and construction will follow Camino Ramon. So that will look to be happening in the summer of 2022. We've also, I indicated previously, we've received some FEMA funds to make some trash rack and storm drain project improvements in areas where we've previously realized some localized flooding. So Starview Drive, Loch Lomond, Westridge, those areas. So those plans are mostly complete, and we're looking to construct those projects in the summer of 2022. In transportation, our one-person transportation division presently, Andy Dillard, has got an awful lot on his plate. Neighborhood Transportation Management Program, lots of activities. We've got 7 neighborhoods that are in various stages of the NTMP. We've recently completed crosswalk striping enhancements along the Iron Horse Trail in several different locations in and around school sites, with more of that to come. We're working on the second phase of the traffic signal controller update project. We expect to receive the new controllers in December and plan to install them in January, weather permitting. With the Tri-Valley Transportation Council, work is continuing on the development of the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee Strategic Expenditure Plan Update. That's a mouthful. We're expecting that to be completed by late winter of 2022. And then a lot of other work that Andrew has going on in conjunction with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, having to do with the Tri-Valley Transportation Plan Action Plan for routes of regional significance, and also participating on a task force that's working on updating the Measure J growth management program. Maintenance services, you can be thankful that I'm going to skip because we have Dave Castile here this evening, and I don't want to steal one bit of Dave's thunder, and he's got a lot to cover. They've been very busy lately. Recreation, arts, and community services, there's again a lot going on there. They are doing, I think, a great job of continuing to comply with all of the latest county health orders. Recovery in RACs has been very good, sufficient, so as to have exceeded our initial estimates for that program, for those program fees and charges for this year. And so we will be looking to come back to you with some mid-year adjustments. Our winter activity guide arrives in the post office, let's see, 2 weeks from now, on or about the 16th. So we can look forward to that. In cultural arts, Classic Corner will debut at the Village Theater this Friday on November the 5th. And we have the Impressions of Light exhibit that'll open at the Art Gallery on Saturday, November the 6th. Got a lot going on in adult and seniors programs. Again, I won't get into too much detail here, but I can tell you that our virtual senior program attendance has reached or exceeded our pre-pandemic in-person class attendance for a number of classes. And so each week, each month, as I look at this, I see that we have new programs starting, buzz sessions that are continuing with our seniors that continue to generate high numbers. We have Tai Chi as the most popular adult senior program since we've reopened. We've had about 70 people registered there. We got 38 people registered for French class, and we are continuing to provide frozen curbside meal service through the end of 2021 for an average of 22 participating seniors each week. Sports and facility is bocce ball and softball going strong. A lot of other sports activities, contract tennis, baseball for tots, our youth karate classes, a lot of other things going on. Picnic rentals going strong, even with the colder weather. And our indoor facility rentals are slowly starting to come back as well. With youth and teens, again, wide variety of preschool enrichment classes right now. These are all very popular. We had Kids Day Out on October 8th and Kids Night Out on the 1st and the 15th of October. And then also Arts and Rec on the Go was part of the Fall Fest for the Saturday that it ran. And we also had our annual Spooktacular celebration on October the 28th. Second annual Scarecrow Stroll ran through the month of October as well. That was very successful with a number of different nicely decorated scarecrows throughout the downtown. So as you can see, a lot of activity going on with fall in full swing. So last but not least, on the administrative general government side of things, as I indicated, Kathy Shiverton, who is one of Supervisor Anderson's appointees to the Measure X Advisory Board, will be coming to our meeting on the 16th to present an overview of the board's work and recommendations. Our town staff this month completed diversity, equity, and inclusion training in October. We have one more makeup session scheduled for this month. We've also added a commitment to inclusivity statement on our website that states that we're committed to making Danville a safe place for all, where we celebrate diversity, dignity, and equality for all members of our community. And you can find that on the general government page on our website. We are continuing, Marie and Rob are working with our IT staff, leading the effort to implement the technology changes and upgrades that we're going to need to move to hybrid council meetings starting in January of 2022. So that's going to conclude my report. For all who may be watching this meeting, just a reminder that you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can sign up to subscribe to Nixle alerts, read our quarterly newsletters, check out our website, which is updated with some frequency at www.danville.ca.gov. Thank you.
Joe, thank you so much. Newell?
Sorry, Joe, that's just a great report again, and a huge thanks to Henry Perez Alonso and the whole Recreation Department. It's just exciting to see everybody coming back. And I know Dave Castile's up next, but I know all of us feel the same way. Dave and his maintenance team did an extraordinary job a week ago Sunday when we had that horrific storm giving Danville over 7 inches of rain, or 7.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. And they were out there working in torrential conditions. But by and large, the town was incredibly in great shape, particularly given that this water has just ran off the ground because the ground was so hard. But it's just amazing what a small group of very dedicated people can do. So to you, Joe and Dave, thank you for just getting everybody out there and keeping everybody safe.
Well, that credit certainly goes to Dave and his crew, but I appreciate that very much, Vice Mayor.
And we also appreciate your reports as well, though, Joe, keeping us informed on what's going on. Thank you. Is there any more other comments to Joe this evening? Okay, well, thank you once again, and please pass along from the council how exciting it is to see all these things come back to fruition and how much we appreciate everything that they do. Danville's definitely a great place to live. So let's go ahead and move on to item 8.1. And item 8.1 is a public hearing, and public comment is invited. And this is going to actually, excuse me, I'm going to go back to 7.1 because we haven't had our maintenance report yet. And then we're going to go back to the other one. It kind of, tonight is the Dave Castile show, I think is what it is. So I'm hopping all over the place because Dave, you're there, you're a 7.1, you're our, Pledge of Allegiance guy, and you're also 8.1. So we'll start with 7.1. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor and members of the council. As always, a pleasure to be before all of you, even if it is virtually. But given the other items that you just alluded to on the agenda, I will try to be brief as we work through this. Although I always say that and it never seems to work out, but I'm going to give it a try here. So as you all were just alluding to, obviously staying very busy with storm-related activities. So as the Vice Mayor mentioned, over 7.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. You all probably are aware of this, but for context, that is more rain than we received all of last year in a 24-hour period. So our crew is certainly busy. I really give credit to the guys that were out here responding. Some of them putting in 15-hour days to help ensure the safety of the area, but also to the whole crew. Leading up to that, a lot of work went into storm preparations before the first drop of rain came down, and I think that's where we really see a big difference. That clearing all the obstructions out of the creeks, cutting down the vegetation that would cause blockages, doing a lot of tree work in advance of the wind and rain coming down that probably prevented a lot of limbs and or trees coming down. Even the buildings guys checking the gutters and doing work at all of our various facilities. We had very little water intrusion into any of our facilities. So really just can't speak enough of all the preparatory work that went in, but definitely that response on Sunday. It was a long day for a lot of us. I think I was here in the office for about 9 or 10 hours, and that pales in comparison to all the rest of the guys that were out there working. So again, just kudos to them. So, but moving ahead, just kind of highlighting a few different program areas here in the parks and roadsides. We really continue to focus on landscape renovation, but I'd say even more so grass removal and water conservation. We did recently complete a few more grass removal projects. One along the western edge of Osage Station Park, along the sound wall, and another at Diablo Vista Park behind the home run fence. And again, these are areas where there's a good amount of grass that requires a lot of water to keep it alive, but really functionally doesn't provide much value or use. So that's kind of been our focus area in terms of where we can maybe save water or make better use of those areas. So we were able to remove the grass there and go back with bark mulch in each location, which will definitely help us in our water conservation efforts moving forward. A little bit different, but similar, and I believe you're all aware of this, but at Bret Harte Park, prior to the ceremony to dedicate it as a heritage site, our crew was able to go through there, did quite a bit of tree work to clean everything up out there, did an overall cleanup of the site, and installed, I think it was just shy of 200 cubic yards of bark mulch, which, what a difference it makes. I mean, every time I drive by, it still catches my eye, even, maybe 2 months later now. So really pleased with how that turned out, and definitely looking forward to keeping that up. Although I don't know if you went by on Sunday or Monday, but Bret Harte Park took on quite a bit of water, and it was more Bret Harte Lake on Monday. So we did resolve some drainage issues out there, and we're back in good shape. But it was a sight to behold on Monday, I'll tell you that much. Elsewhere, we just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago a project resurfacing two of the tennis courts at Monte Vista High School that the town maintains. And then also, what was maybe 6-7 months ago, that we installed the 2 pickleball courts at Osage Station Park. As expected, they are incredibly popular, usually a line of 10 plus waiting to get on them. So a couple of things. One, we did just install, call it a barrier netting in between the pickleball courts and the tennis court adjacent to it, to help reduce balls going from one to the other and disrupting play. So that went up. That's been very well received by both members of tennis and pickleball, which worked out very well. And then also, just not long after we had our bright, shiny new tennis court or pickleball courts there, before the big storm, when we had a little storm, it was enough to take out an adjacent tree that came down onto the tennis court fencing, knocked out a couple sections of that, and caused some damage. But kudos to our superintendent, John Teixeira, and park supervisor, Mike Halfus. We had the fallen tree removed, 4 other adjacent trees that proved to maybe also be potential concerns, all removed, and the fencing repaired, and play resumed in less than 24 hours from the tree failure. So really, really proud of those guys jumping to it and making sure that they got out there quickly and made the area safe and again, playable for everybody. I don't even want to think what kind of feedback we'll hear if we have to close the pickleball courts for any amount of time based on how many folks are out there on a regular basis. Over in the buildings, a lot of just day-to-day work going on with the buildings crew, just keeping up on everything, especially now that the buildings are getting more use and more folks are back in the office. So that's picked up quite a bit. They were able to complete a few different projects. If you haven't been by the service center recently, I would suggest doing a drive-by. We were able to complete some dry rot repair on the exterior, repaint the entire exterior, and replace the sign, the Town of Danville Service Center sign on the front of the building, which suffice to say, it was ready to be refreshed. So we have a whole new looking building out here, coupled with some landscape upgrades a little bit earlier in the season. So we're looking good out here, feeling pretty good about how things are looking right now. And all those projects really went great. They also completed a project repainting the interior of the art gallery before it opened back up with a new exhibit. And then over in the library, we were able to utilize some grant funding to replace the, some might call them dated drinking fountains at the site with the more common now, the bottle filling station. So drinking fountain / bottle filler combos, which are always well received in all of our facilities here. The streets crew, as you all know, the streets crew takes the lead on a lot of our storm prep and response. So I imagine you all can guess what they've been doing the last couple of weeks here. So they've been running around, really checking on the facilities and keeping everything safe, and making sure that we're ready for the next storm, which looks like maybe early next week we might get a decent amount of rain. So they're busy preparing for that. Prior to the rain, they were able to take advantage of some of the good weather. They completed some asphalt repairs on both Morning Home and Camino Tasajara, where they went out and they're kind of small scale, but for us, pretty good projects where they're removing and replacing damaged or uplifted asphalt. And they're also able to do something similar on what we refer to as the Freitas Trail, which I believe you all know is the trail that runs kind of along Sycamore Creek. In this case, just west of Old Orchard, near the school district office there. There's some very large redwood trees, and they made quite a bit of movement underneath the trail there. So the streets crew was able to in-house go in there and replace, I think it was about 20-25 feet of the trail and level it out and make it much safer. So night and day difference. That was probably our biggest potential tripping hazard on any of our trails. And so I feel really good about having that one done, and it turned out really nice, and the crew enjoyed doing that project. It's a nice little change of pace for them. So what we have going on right now, just a couple of highlights. The Diablo Vista Park sports field lighting on the field that we affectionately refer to as DV60. Things continue to move forward. As you all recall, the Sports Alliance is funding that project to install sports field lighting on that field. We're working with Musco, the contractor, to get everything prepared. Our target is to install the lights during the winter moratorium so that we don't impact any play. And knock on wood, as of now, we are in great shape to hit our target. So things continue to progress nicely on that front. Over at Hat McGee Ranch Park, you all may recall we had prepared to go out to bid to replace the gazebo. Due to supply chain issues, workforce issues, COVID, you name it. The price tripled from the estimate that we had received initially for it, going from about 80,000 up to almost $250,000. And so in true maintenance fashion, when some of our guys caught wind of that, they said, "Let me at it. I can take care of that." And so we've got a team out there that's been working to replace all of the wooden supports and decorative railing. The project's coming along real nicely, and hopefully in the next I don't want to overcommit. In the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll be able to have a painter out there putting the finishing touches on it. And I think our goal of extending the life of the structure at least a few years has been more than accomplished with how great the project has been going out there. So we'll see when the bid environment might be more favorable, but for the time being, we will soon have that gazebo back open to the public and have some beautiful weddings there, hopefully. And then last but not least, on some of the current projects, we are working with our electrical contractor to complete all of the repairs to the various holiday trees. So the old oak tree on Diablo, the hospice tree, and some others. We go through every year, make sure that those lights are all in good shape before we turn them on the day after Thanksgiving. So we're getting everything in order there. And we've got a team actively preparing to work the event itself, both preparing for it and being ready to actually respond the day of. So continuing to look forward to that, always a great event. And looking ahead, a few interesting highlights that we have going on. We are working on the Oak Hill Park playground equipment replacement design. We've been going back and forth with one of our local vendors on that to try to fine tune some design options for the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to take a look at. We have the winter moratorium quickly approaching on December 1st, when, as you all know, we'll go through and let our fields kind of rest and rehab and do some work on those, as well as renovating our Best in the East Bay Dog Park at Hat McGee Ranch Park. Councilmember Stepper, you will be pleased to know that that project includes the installation of 2 benches in the small dog park that we have just received and put together. So we're waiting for the moratorium when we can put some concrete down, but that is on the agenda for it. We are working to take over the landscaping along Camino Ramon and San Ramon Valley Boulevard that was installed as part of the auxiliary lane project following the completion of the 5-year establishment period coming up in April. So we've met with the contractors out there to get a better lay of the land. We'll put together some specs and be going out to bid probably early next year to be ready for that. We'll continue to focus on our water conservation efforts and where we might be able to eliminate grass and or just make better use of areas and continue to refine our irrigation systems at the same time, really with a major focus on conserving as much water as possible. Hopefully the rain that we've received, although maybe not quite as much as on Sunday, but is a sign of things to come. Coming out of the drought year the drought, almost 2 years now that we've been going through, that'll obviously help us out quite a bit. I've turned irrigation off for the year, and I'm hoping to keep it off for several months. So fingers crossed on that front. And then not to repeat myself too much here, but last but not least, we just wrapped up what I'll call sports field season, and we are now rolling into storm season. So a big focus of ours will continue to be on preparing for and responding to storm events as we go forward. So like I said, I was hoping to keep it brief. I don't know that I succeeded, but I will conclude my report with that. Happy to answer any questions that any of you all may have.
Thank you so much, Dave. I know that we have questions from council. Robert?
Great, thanks, Dave. As always, great report. Love to hear about this grass removal. And I know you mentioned in our last report that there's still a great deal of grass to be removed. Just refresh my memory. Are we talking like a half an acre, or are we talking 3 acres?
Collectively, the projects that we've completed so far are in the neighborhood of 2 acres total, spread out a bit. So I think we're still identifying additional sites. I think we may take more of a look on Camino Tasajara and some of the grass areas there. So we're about at 2 acres now. I'd love to see that number doubled by this time next year.
Yeah, so when you remove the grass, is it a combination of cobble, maybe some drought resistant plants and tan bark, or are you taking the plants out of the equation entirely?
A little bit of both. Before we really found ourselves in the midst of this drought, we did complete a landscape replacement project along Crow Canyon where we removed grass and did replace it with plants and trees.
Okay.
Since then, I've given the directive to our crews to try to avoid putting any new plant material on the ground until we work ourselves out of the current drought situation. So most of our projects recently have been a little bit more off of the beaten path that aren't quite as visible, where we're mostly going back with just tan bark after we remove the grass and not putting any plant material down right now, just because we want to avoid using that water during the current drought situation.
Yeah, makes sense. During that 7.5 inch day, that horrific storm, I know a tree fell down on Sonora Avenue. And just sort of walk me through that process, or walk us through the process. So the tree it looked like it belonged to a homeowner. It falls across the street, takes out the power line. What's the town responsibility? Are we removing the tree, or is the homeowner trying to figure it out?
So it can kind of be a little bit case by case. And ironically enough, the next day, an almost identical tree 1 street over on El Dorado came down over the street, almost identical to the situation on Sonora, both times coming down into power lines. So in those 2 cases, because the trees were involved with power lines, PG&E responds to those.
Okay.
So we did an initial response to help close off and safe off the area. We did communicate with the property owner and let them know that, it is, in those cases, we do let them know it is their tree. But it's a challenge for most property owners, homeowners, to have a large scale tree company out quickly enough to reopen the road. So our responsibility is one, to keep the public safe, but two, to try to get the roads reopened as quickly as possible. In this case, there wasn't a whole lot that we could ourselves do with the trees because of the power lines. So we did wait and coordinate with PG&E. They came out, responded. And actually, quite fortunately, a lot of times they will clear to 10 feet away from the power lines and leave the rest for either the homeowner or the town. In this case, they ended up clearing the entire roadway on both roads. So it's not necessarily one size fits all. It can kind of vary on some of the with the variables that come into play, but in this case, PG&E responded to those ones.
Good, Dave. We'll pass our congratulations on to your department. You guys do a great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Dave?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hey, Dave, great job as always. Quick question I have is, I was taking a look at the register demands and I noticed that East May Mud continues to increase in cost and of water. In fact, $183,000 over a period of a couple of months is what the expenditure was. How are you coming along with enabling technology? I think it's called UGMO, to better manage and monitor our usage of water so that hopefully over time we can mitigate this increasing cost of water for our town.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a combination of factors and really trying to harness all of them to save water where we can. So leveraging technology like UGMO or our central irrigation system, some of the grass removal projects that I've referenced, utilizing bark mulch, which does help retain moisture in the soil. All of these things are things that we're looking at on a daily basis. The East Bay mud bills that came through, they are a bit scary looking, especially I remember, a little over 2 years ago when I moved into this position and got my first water bill, and it was right after summer. I thought that Mr. Calabrigo would be calling me into his office any minute, but I can say September and November historically these aren't too out of line with what we've seen. In fact, I looked at the numbers today. We're tracking just a little ahead of water usage compared to where we were at this time last year, which I consider actually to probably be a good thing given how much more severe the drought conditions got over the course of this past year. But that being said, we're really trying to refine our use of the UGMO system. I am a firm believer in the technology. I think the way that the system is set up is really how irrigation will be run in the future. I think we're still refining it. We're not necessarily seeing the results that we had hoped for. We're seeing decent results, but I would like to see some better savings at some of the sites where we're utilizing the UGMO equipment. And I'm hoping, my goal is to really focus over this next year, well, in this case, I guess about 8 months, on refining the use of that and improving it so that if and when the next round of ARPA funds come through where UGMO has been earmarked for some of those funds, we'll be in a position to where we feel very good and comfortable moving forward on converting more sites over there and really leveraging that technology in a greater amount of area.
Dave, just very briefly, for those who might be watching this meeting and aren't familiar with the terminology, just real quick, what is UGMO? Yeah, thank you. I should have spoke to that. So UGMO is an irrigation control system that we have been making use of over about the last 2 years. What is really neat about it is it uses underground sensors that measure the moisture content of the soil. And so irrigation schedules are based on how much moisture the soil needs based on those readings rather than humans trying to guess how much water that soil needs. So we set thresholds for various types, whether it's turf, shrubs, trees, whatever it may be. The neat thing is the sensors are installed per every valve station that there is. So it is very localized. It's very specific. It's better even than I think evapotranspiration, where you might be getting information from Concord that's dictating your irrigation schedules out here. Whereas these, you're getting information within 100 feet of where you're watering, of a radius of that. So it's very localized. And the technology is great. And I think it's just a matter of really refining those thresholds and increasing our comfort level with it.
Yeah, and Dave, obviously, the unit has demonstrated value. At some point, it reaches a threshold. So we don't need to have it working 100% right, because we know at least it's delivering 50 or 60% of value. To me, that's good enough. That's moving the needle. And that helps mitigate this cost and usage of water. But most importantly, as you described, and you described it very well, which is to the sensor and to the specific square footage of ground. So you know exactly at what point how much water is needed in order to manage your landscaping. So great job. And as always, you're always, proactive and strategic in the way that you're managing your team and the town, and appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much, sir.
Karen?
All right, thank you very much. The maintenance group are just out every day. I think our trucks look good and they have the logo on it. I see people stop and talk to them. I think they're just amazing. I can't go to a park that there isn't a truck there and people working. And so kudos to what the grounds look like. The grass, not the grass you're taking up, but you walk around Danville. Danville, as the mayor said short time ago, is a beautiful place to live. And with the rain finally coming back, the grasses that are here, whether they're being replaced with other plants or whether it's grass, are incredibly gorgeous. So thank you for that work that you're doing. I just don't know how you do it with the number of people that you have. The dog park, they'll be really excited when it reopens because people want not the benches so much for sitting, but to have some shade on that side of the park. So I couldn't believe how fast you have responded, and I appreciate that and what you're doing on the gazebo. It's amazing. So the second thing you brought up was the Oak Hill play area. So I just have a general comment, which I've made before, but if you go to the parks that are out here, whether they're in Santa Mona or Danville, they're not all used by the same age. If you go to Osage, it's now a much younger age group playing there than it used to be because the slides are not very, very tall, but the creative play is really used well. If you go to Central Park, which is in Santa Mona, it has a lot bigger equipment for older kids. And the reason I say this, because you told me you're looking at the design for Oak Hill Park, which is actually great equipment, not necessarily the age that it should be in terms of the maintenance of it, but the tall swings, the slide into the hill, the climbing up on the building, the log cabin buildings, not the real one, I hope. Are used by older kids. And so to replace that, I'm hoping we're going to maintain that if there's a 5 to 12-year-old age and a K5, most K5 kids use the 5 to 12 at 7 to 12 as well. And so people need to go and visit these parks and see what ages are using them and how to make sure that they're maintaining that. It's a much difficult thing because kids, once they're over 10, think they're really sophisticated teenagers, some of them, but other ones are out there playing with their siblings. And so they need to have equipment. And I would commend some of the equipment that went into the Hap McGee Park. It's used by a lot of different ages too. So thank you for taking that on as a project. The last one has to do with how usable our fields are and the fact that we had that huge rainstorm that took you out all day in the rain. I was only out in it, standing in it for 3 hours with my soccer game, but I followed 3 other games. And it's because when you play on turf fields, they don't get canceled. You get to play even though your shoes are soaked. So, and so I think a great kudos for how fast you've moved on the Sports Alliance offer for the lights on Diablo Vista, because the lights and the turf make things usable for so many sports for so much longer in the time period. I think we're just being really effective there. And I just kudos again to you, Dave, for being so receptive to the changes in technology, whether it be lights or whether it's the UGMO, which thank you, Joe, for bringing that definition back to the public. So just excellent. And the parks are looking amazing. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I would just like to say, I'd like to give the Sports Alliance a lot of credit. As you know, they've always been a great partner to work with. We have a great working relationship, and they really see the value in completing projects like this for what it's able to do for the community and for kids that maybe haven't even started playing sports yet, but will, so they see the big picture, which I really commend them for that. So
Newell?
Dave, I think it's going to be a busy year for you this winter. I think you look at the storms that are lined up here now. Fortunately, they're going to be measured as they come in, but I think your work's cut out, and all the prep work, as you said, has really paid off. Is there an update that you might have on Front Street for the repairs? to the Eugene O'Neill, the bench, and all the damage was done. I know it's COVID, it's a challenge. We had just replaced some of those placards and all of that stuff. Any update at this point?
Yeah, ironically enough, I actually just reached out to the vendor for the Eugene O'Neill, I'll call them booklets. Just like everyone else, they're so backed up that they're having a hard time squeezing us in. They do have all of the materials from what was damaged, and it's just a matter of squeezing into their schedule. I'm hoping next month, which is tough because it's already been several months, unfortunately. But really wanted to keep the consistency of the vendor that worked on those if possible. So
Yeah.
hoping to push that forward. I do know that we identified benches, initially the benches that we were going to try to put back into that are similar to what's out there. It was nearly $5,000 per bench,
Wow.
just for the materials. So we decided to take this opportunity to maybe look into some different options on what benches might make sense for us moving forward in terms of durability, look, aesthetics, and still fitting in with what we have. So we're working towards that, but same issue with supply chain. Lead time on some of these items it's always a long time, but right now especially, it's just it's pretty incredible, unfortunately. But we are actively working on it.
Great, Dave. Thanks for that update. Really appreciate it.
Are there any more comments from council or questions, I should say? If not, Marie, I was wondering if there's anybody in the public that would like to comment on that, since we do have members of the public.
There are no hands raised to speak on this item. No.
Okay, all right. So we're going to go ahead and move on then to item 8.1, which is also the Dave Castile show. And it's to consider introduction of ordinance number 2021-03, amending section 3-8.5 and section 3-8.6 of the Danville Municipal Code regarding purchasing and contracting.
Well, thank you again, Madam Mayor. I'm glad I brought my water bottle with me this evening. So the town's purchasing ordinance establishes the procedures used when contracting for services and goods, including setting dollar thresholds that determine the various bidding processes. Outside of public works construction projects and professional service contracts, cities are permitted to determine when and what type of bidding is required. The purpose of the purchasing ordinance is to ensure a transparent process, as well as trying to ensure the best possible price for the town. Bids are labeled as either formal or informal. Formal bids must be submitted in a sealed envelope and generally are a more involved process than informal bids, which don't require a sealed envelope and are typically used for smaller jobs that require a faster turnaround. A little bit of the history of the ordinance. The town's first purchasing ordinance was adopted in the 1980s, and it required no bids for services or goods under $1,000, informal bids for up to $10,000, and formal bids for anything over $10,000. The ordinance was amended in 1999 and increased the thresholds to $2,500 for no bids required, up to $15,000 for informal bids, and then formal bids for anything over the $15,000 threshold. And then the ordinance was once again amended in 2013, increasing the threshold for no bids required from $2,500 up to $5,000, but leaving the rest of the thresholds unchanged. Since the most recent update, inflation has increased by over 22%. Additionally, inflation is up nearly 74% since the last update to the formal bid threshold in 1999. As seemingly everything's become more expensive, this has resulted in an ever-increasing amount of staff time to obtain bids and complete paperwork for even the most routine purchases, such as buying grass seed or contracting out some general tree pruning. In order to operate more efficiently and maximize staff time, town staff is recommending that the thresholds for no bids required be increased from 5,000 to 10,000. The threshold for informal bids be increased from 15,000 to 25,000, and the threshold for formal bids then be anything over that $25,000 number. All other provisions in the ordinance, including who has the authority to award the contracts, would remain unchanged. And so with that, I will conclude my presentation by recommending that the town council introduce and read by title only ordinance number 2021-03, amending sections 3-8.5 and 3-8.6 of the Danville Municipal Code regarding purchasing and contracting, and return for the second reading on November 16th, 2021. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Karen?
Just to comment that it did come to the finance committee as well originally. So, you know, if you have somebody who's been your town manager for how many years, Jill? 35. So I think that it's really appropriate that it be increased in the limits. So appreciate that.
Any other comments from council? I'd like to go ahead and open it up to the public then. If there anybody that wishes to address the council on item 8.1.
There are no hands raised to speak on this item.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council.
I'd move item 8.1 as presented, and thank you, Dave, and to the Finance Committee.
Second that.
Yeah,
Okay,
nicely done, Dave.
so I have a first from Newell and a second from Dave. And a roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Fong,
Yes.
Councilmember Stepper,
Yes.
Councilmember Storer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Arnerich,
Yes.
and Mayor Morgan.
Yes.
And ordinance number 2021-03 was approved unanimously and will return for second reading on November 16th.
Thank you. And thank you, Dave, for your informative reports on all the items that you brought forth and your wonderful rendition of the pledge. We appreciate you being here this evening with us.
Thank you all very much for your continued support. It means very much to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. And item number 9 is our town council reports, and item 9.1 is our Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission liaison report by Councilmember Storer.
Well, thank you, Mayor. The Arts and Parks Commission just met recently at the Community Center for a study session and to discuss the strategic master plan. And as you can imagine, our Arts Commissioner, our Parks Commissioner are anxious about a number of items. One in particular is the arts program, the new art program, whatever that looks like. They'd like to utilize the town green more effectively, and they'd like to figure out ways to use the town-owned potential future art studio on Front Street. And then there's naturally some interest on the 3-acre Weber property that, you know, right now it currently is in disrepair, but has a lot of future potential. And I'll also mention that the All Wars Memorial Board is coming to the town for a complete redo on the All Wars Memorial at Oak Hill Park. Some of it will be, as an example, on Memorial Day, we have 3 weeks before Memorial Day, we have a wonderful hillside of colorful flowers. And then on Memorial Day, you know, everything basically is deadheaded and there's no color anymore. So we are putting together a landscape plan that will give us color throughout the entire year. Little things like 9/11, you know, where they have to run a long extension cord. We're actually going to get plugs and power at the podium so that you don't have to step all over, you know, duct tape. And then, you know, we have 2 seatings, one an admiral. We affectionately call it the Admiral's Wall and the General's Wall, but it is a seating that goes across the front that will actually have the All Wars Memorial logo and the signage. And there'll be new benches. As many of you know, we have sold out all the existing pavers, and we just installed, I say just, right before COVID, we installed another 630 new pavers, of which we've sold about 113 so far. So we're kind of excited about this. We'll be coming to the Parks Commission at some point. We were hoping for the end of the year, but as you know, boards don't always make decisions quickly. So we will be, plans are completed. We're actually meeting with Joe Raffel, Braddock and Logan, because he generously helped on the very first go around. And he's already contributed $100,000 from his foundation. And he's also indicated that he would help, you know, facilitate the construction and do whatever he can, because he is certainly a big fan of Danville and the All Wars Memorial. And by the way, he loves Oak Hill Park.
Wow, that's great. Are there any questions or comments for Robert? Yeah, that's great news, Robert. That's great news. Are there any? Go ahead.
The plug at the podium will affectionately be the Karen Stepper plug at that podium, because she needs that on 9/11 the most. So, you know, Karen, we did think about you, ma'am.
Yeah, that and the fact that most of us do not want to trip over it as we're walking up there, which is not a really pretty sight. So we all appreciate the plug. So, all right. So item 9.2 are any town council updates. Are there any town council updates? All right, Robert, it's the Robert show now. Let's go
Well,
ahead.
you know, I'm going to be sending an email that I received. So first of all, let me back up. Apparently, we're all hearing about coyotes in Danville, and we're reaching out to Fish and Wildlife. There's a number of individuals in town that are very concerned about the coyotes, and we've been sending this message that, hey, look, we need to have you report an animal incident. You need to, that Fish and Wildlife can actually sort of document the concentration of coyotes. And then we were under the impression that Fish and Wildlife would come in and either relocate, euthanize, or somehow remove the animal from the area. Well, I spoke to a number of people from Fish and Wildlife, and that's not the case. And I'm going to send an email to this council that explains, because it was a very long conversation. I said, would you mind just sort of composing an email so that we have accurate information? Because as you know, we're giving people this information to report, but it doesn't even matter if you report because they can't do anything. It's out of their wheelhouse. And that's your police chief says, look, we're not going to send an officer down there on an animal attack and try to deal with that. That's just not something we're going to do. And naturally, with wintertime coming, it is probably going to be much better. We won't see the coyotes, but they're hungry and they're thirsty, and they're coming down into the green belts especially. So I'll send this email to everybody, including Joe, Rob, and Diane, and you could see firsthand the information from Fish and Wildlife.
That's good news, because I've been receiving emails as well, and I know that you've been dubbed the Coyote Man. So we're going to go ahead and leave it at that.
Well, but Fish and Wildlife has said, look, you need to change the behavior. You need to get rid of the feral animals, which I'm not sure how we would do that, but that's one of the suggestions. Don't walk your dog in the greenbelt at night. If you're going to walk your dog,
leaving dog food out.
Group. There's some good common sense things to do. And walking by yourself is just not the greatest thing in the world in a greenbelt when we actually have coyote sightings.
Well, and it's interesting as well, because they were talking about it being a drought related issue as well. They're coming down for water, and now we're having water. So hopefully it'll maybe dissipate a little bit, but I understand the concerns. Yeah. Are there any other comments or reports, I should say? I just wanted to mention to everybody that on Friday's Town Talks, we at 9 a.m. So make sure that you get your Zoom code to zoom into that. We'll be talking to our local veterans as well as providing information for veterans or families and so forth, and talking to some of their experiences when they actually went to war. And on November 11th, which is actually Veterans Day, the town council will be presenting a proclamation honoring Danville as a national city of recognition of the Purple Heart and being placed on the national trail for the Purple Heart. So we're really honored to have that given and bestowed upon the town. We'll be unveiling a plaque that day, as well as presenting a proclamation, not only to the National Registry of the Purple Heart, but to our veterans as well. So we hope that you join us. That's at 1 p.m. And the following day, the entire council got together on our own dime, I should say, personally, and we will be providing a pancake breakfast for all of our veterans that will come out in honor of them as well. So please come down and take a look at, we've got this beautiful memorial building, the Veterans Memorial Building on Hearts. Come down, take a look at it. It'll be open to the public with lots of displays, lots of things out front to take a look at for the kids as well as yourself. And on that note, if there are no other comments or questions, Karen, I've got you on mute right now.
Yes, unmute would be nice. 20 seconds would be the fact that when I was buying Christmas stamps today, that they had the Purple Heart stamps again in at the post office in Danville. And I think a lot of people might like to get those in connection with that ceremony.
That is a wonderful idea. That is great. Great to know. Yeah. All right, everybody. We look forward to seeing you then on Friday morning on Zoom. And if not, we'll see you definitely on November 11th for Veterans Day and celebration of our veterans. And on that note, this meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great night, guys.
Thank you. So, Marie, did you get my papers for the suggestions for awards? You're on mute, but I think that was yes.